So Andy, they say, isn't IEMT just the same as EMDR? And I say, no, it's got a different name. It's exactly the same though, because they both use eye movements. In exactly the same way that football and rugby are the same because they use a ball, or NLP and Freudian psychoanalysis are the same because, well, they use words. They're completely different models and they have completely different applications and different outcomes. It's not like, is one better than the other? We have had loads of people trained in EMDR, including EMDR trainers, come to the IEMT practitioner programs, and guess what? We have never had anyone say they're the same, ever. In fact, what we do get is like, wow, that is completely new material to me. Of course it is. It's not the same thing. But people who know nothing of EMDR and nothing of IEMT like to tell me they're exactly the same thing because, well, I've made an assumption in my head that they must be the same because they both use eye. This is what I'm up against. They're not the same thing at all. Then when people say, so what's the difference? Okay, so to tell you the difference, I'm going to have to teach you EMDR, which will take a few days, and then teach you IEMT, which will take a few days. I can't tell you the difference between two things that aren't the same. You understand my difficulty here. And yet they still keep asking, and I still keep putting stuff out there. Then the EMDR people said, okay, we know about EMDR. How is IEMT different? So I had an EMDR trainer attend one of the courses, and I asked this EMDR trainer now to write the what's the difference between page, which is on the website. Ever since that was posted, every week somebody writes to me to say, that's not right. That's not what EMDR is. I didn't write it. An EMDR trainer did. So you can argue that amongst yourselves, EMDRers, because it's not my field. It's not what we do. This is entirely different. But isn't integral eye movement therapy just a rip-off of eye movement integration? Yes. Can't deny it. Not deliberately so. There's been a number of happen chances and things that happened along the way. The regret I have is the name, of course, because I mean, seriously, eye movement integration, integral eye movement therapy. Yeah, I'd take that one. That was a bad move on my part. But in my defense, I never expected it to become what it became. It was just a 2-hour workshop I did. 2 hours, interesting stuff. Let's explore it. Next thing I know, association, all these members, lots of trainers, people think it's fantastic. Eye movement integration does form possibly the first 15 to 20 minutes of the practitioner course, at which point everything for the rest of those 2 days is completely different. There is not similarity. It is not the same model. But the opening pieces of IEMT is EMI. It's confusing, I know. However, if you have trained in EMDR, IEMT will be completely new to you. I guarantee you. If you have trained in eye movement integration and are using that professionally, I can guarantee you after the first 15, 20 minutes of the workshop, everything will be new material to you. Because it's the stuff that I developed based on a whole bunch of different influences. Influences into the integral eye movement therapy model. We have clean language. There were various bits and pieces within clean language that I thought, aha, that is interesting. Particularly James Lawley and Penny Tompkins' work on what they call the PRO model. When I was introduced to that, my mind blew because the implications of that work, and it's on their website, and James was very, very helpful to me in explaining the PRO model to me back in the day. That is fantastic. We don't teach the PRO model. I'm not saying that's something we reproduce, but that itself lent a particular influence to some of the developments that we had. David Grove, from whom Clean Language developed, his work around pronouns, again, my mind blew back in those days. And I took some of the work he was doing with pronouns and then developed that into the integral eye movement therapy model. Not the same that David Grove was doing. In fact, it's completely different. But again, it has that inspiration from it. In the background to an awful lot of this stuff, R.D. Laing, one of my biggest influences. I only have two big influences in my professional work. R.D. Laing, who was the British psychoanalyst, psychiatrist, one of the radicals, one of the counterculture psychiatrists, and Charles Faulkner, one of the NLP trainers, does a lot of stuff around business, commerce, and metaphor. Those are the two biggest influences. Lucas Dirks. For years, I was teaching this work whilst I was developing it. So it went from 2 hours to 4 hours and so. And this name, Lucas Dirks, kept coming up. People who knew him or knew his work said, oh, do you know Lucas? I went, no, I don't know Lucas. Because he's doing something very similar. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Now, unknown to me, throughout that time, people who had seen my stuff, who knew Lucas, would go, oh, you know Andy? He's doing very similar stuff. Eventually, myself and Lucas met over in Colorado when Steve Andreas organized a big conference with a number of different speakers. And then myself and Lucas were able to compare work, and we've been friends ever since. So an awful lot then of what Lucas taught me then really sort of systematized some of the stuff around the identity modules. That's reserved for the more advanced workshop rather than the practitioner course. So Lucas also is a significant influence in the work. I hate to break it to you, but EMDR was not. EMDR just introduced me, this was back in the 90s, to the eye movement concept. And I was experimenting with that with people and found it was phenomenal for some people, but it didn't work for other people. And I wanted to know why. Why doesn't it work for those particular people? And my investigations into that is then what led into the work that became integral eye movement therapy. Somewhere along the way, eye movement integration got introduced. One of those ones that I have no memory of until it's pointed out to me. It's like, oh yeah, I did do that. So that got incorporated too. The end result though of the 2-day practitioner course and then the other 2-day advanced practitioner, no similarity at all, especially when you start looking into systems theory and zero-sum game, on which the entire model is hinged or hanging on, whatever the word is. Zero-sum game theory is the central piece to integral eye movement therapy. And then within zero-sum game theory, we have the 5 patterns of chronicity. These are the patterns by which people get stuck. There's 5 of them. If you heal those 5 patterns, time can be a great healer for people. When people have those 5 patterns in place, time will not heal, nor will anything, in fact. These are the clients who are completely resistant to change over time and also against intervention. They're regarded as the resistant client. Once you know the 5 patterns of chronicity and can intervene with those using IEMT models that you'll learn, the change in these intractable chronic clients is remarkable. I don't think EMDR does that, and I know that eye movement integration doesn't do that. This is an entirely different model. Shall I say it again? It's not the same model. It uses some similarities. It uses eye movements because our eyes move, just like our mouths make words. Doesn't mean it's in any way related. So when people say to you, oh yes, I know about EMDR. Oh yes, I know about IEMT. Yeah, they're the same thing really. IEMT is just a rip-off of it. You know you're talking to somebody I've probably never met or spoken to. It's amazing to me how many self-appointed experts have never studied the book. No, there is a book on IEMT. They've never watched the videos, never talked to me, never turned up at a training. They've never studied the subject that they're talking about. But they know enough to have an opinion to impart that opinion to other people. IEMT, the best thing you'll find, believe me. It's fantastic. Come to the training. You'll love it.